President, please be seated. The court is back in session. And before I give the floor to the lead co-lawyer for civil party, I give the floor to Judge Mark Lavange to put questions to the witness. Judge Mark Lavange, you may proceed.
I didn't quite understand. I thought that the floor was given to the co-lead lawyers, but I understood that they had finished with their examination. Did I understand you well?
Mr. President, I told during the morning session that my question is concluded. President, yes, your question is concluded and your time also expired. And it's clear that I give the floor to Judge Mark Lavange.
Thank you, Mr. President. Witness, I have a few questions to put to you, and first of all, I would like us to discuss your activities at the very beginning of the decay period. You said that before you went to work at K1, you had worked at close to the embassy, to the Chinese embassy, and if I understood you well, you were in charge of facilitating relations between DK and China. So did I understand what you said this morning correctly?
Yes, that is correct.
Can you tell us until when you worked at the Chinese embassy? Was it during 1 month? Was it for several months? Or was it for a year? For how long were you working with the Chinese embassy?
I cannot recall it clearly. I worked there for nearly 1 year.
I also believe I understood from what you said this morning that you were in charge of welcoming certain visitors, and in particular Chinese visitors. Is that true?
Yes, I welcomed the Chinese technicians.
Did you also welcome Chinese senior officials? Aside from the technicians, were there also high-ranking people coming from China who came to visit Democratic Kampuchea?
No, never.
I am going to speak out a few names, and you will tell me if these names ring a bell. Zhang Zhongqiao. Does that name ring a bell?
No, my apology. I cannot recall that name.
What about Cheng Yung-Kwei? Also known as Cheng Yung-Ki, and who was in charge of the Dadzai cooperatives in China, and who sometimes was called Tadzai here in Cambodia. Does this name ring a bell?
I was familiar with the name Tachai.
Do you remember if Tachai came to visit DK during a tour that lasted a few weeks, during which he was accompanied by Pol Pot?
At that time, I was not close with the visits of Ta Chai.
Yeah.
Fine. Last name now. What about Kong Cheng? Does his name ring a bell?
No, I cannot recall this name.
Fine. You also said, and this we see in your WRI E3/462, you said that you also accompanied Pol Pot during his trips to China and to North Korea. This is at answers 13 and 18 of your WRI. Do you remember indeed having escorted Pol Pot during those trips?
Yes, I accompanied him to the two countries.
So when you traveled to China, did you go there once or several times? Do you remember where you traveled to and whom you met over there?
I went about twice. I went with Pol Pot. But I did not know about the components of the Chinese delegates.
Did you only go to Beijing, or did you visit other cities inside China, or work sites or cooperatives inside China?
Overall speaking, Pol Pot met with other Chinese leaderships. He did not visit any factories.
Yeah.
Fine. And did you attend any meetings between Pol Pot and certain Chinese leaders?
No, I did not.
You, in your WRI E3/462, you also said that you accompanied Ieng Sary to Vietnam. So, do you remember that trip? And can you tell us if this actually happened, and when you went with Ieng Sary to Vietnam, if you went there?
Yes, I accompanied Ta Ieng Sary to Vietnam. It was in 1978. Probably it was in 1974. We went by ship through Stang Traing.
Just to make things a bit clearer, did you go to Vietnam with Ieng Sary before the capture of Phnom Penh or after the capture of Phnom Penh?
It was before. It was before the capture of Phnom Penh.
And do you know if later on there were delegations traveling back and forth between Cambodia and Vietnam? Were they visits? Are you aware of that?
No, I do not know.
Avez-vous
Were you in charge of welcoming Western visitors? And if yes, do you remember the names of the people who came to visit Democratic Kampuchea from the West?
I never received Western delegates.
J'ai juste
I have one last question only, which regards an answer that you provided in your WRI concerning your work as a messenger. This is answer 5 of document E3/462. And you say the following at answer 5. Question: did you ever see all 4 of them? So these 4 people is Ieng Sary, Khieu Samphan, Nuon Chea, and Pol Pot. So did you see the 4 of them meeting together at that house, K1? Answer: I saw meetings of all the zone secretaries at office K1. I never saw meetings of the leadership. I saw Sao Pim from the East Zone coming to meetings frequently. I saw Kepok and Tuch come for meetings. I often carried letters from K1 to the zones. I knew Sao Pim well. I did not know about the letters sent because they were tightly sealed. Pol Pot personally gave them to me to take to the zones, like to Kepok and Tuch. I never accepted telegrams to be sent, just things such as liquor. So, were you indeed in charge of delivering liquor to the zones?
No, it was not about distributing liquor to the zones. In fact, it's the gifts or presents from Pol Pot.
Et à qui Pol
And to whom would Pol Pot give these kinds of presents? To whom did you give these gifts?
To the East Zone.
Donc Pol Pot
So Pol Pot would send gifts to Sao Pim. Is that what I must understand?
Yes, to Sao Pim.
what can you tell us about the relations between Pol Pot and Sao Pom? Were they on very friendly terms? Were they very close to each other?
In fact, both of them were close to each other. Sao Pom had a rash on his skin, and it was itchy. And I can confirm that both of them were close to each other.
Est-ce que vous avez...
Did you note that if they started being on bad terms at a point in time?
I was not aware of his internal affairs.
Fine. Thank you very much, witness, for these clarifications. I have no further questions.
President, now I give the floor to the Defense Counsel for Nuon Chea to put questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. I'm Nuon Chea's International Counsel, and I would like to ask you some questions today. Let me start by following up something that you were asked this morning by the prosecution, and that was when you joined the revolution. You said, I believe, 1970. Is it possible that that was a bit earlier than 1970?
I joined the Vietnamese army in 1970.
I understand, but did you join the revolution earlier than you joined the Vietnamese army?
Before the coup, I was in the secret insurgency movement, and in 1970 I joined the Vietnamese army.
Were you ever arrested or sentenced to a prison term before 1970? In other words, arrested by the police in the Sihanouk regime?
Yes, I was jailed. I was jailed for 20 years.
And how long did you serve your sentence? How long of a period were you actually in jail before 1970?
I was in the prison. I was in the prison for 2 years, and then I was released.
Were you and your brother close in terms of personal relations with Pol Pot before 1970?
Talking about my relationship with Pol Pot in 1970, we had no relationships at that time.
Did Pol Pot at one point in time ask you to become a photographer?
Yes.
And when was...
I was a photographer. I received the photography training skill since I was in the jungle.
When did Pol Pot ask you to become a photographer? Was that in the 70s, after you left the Vietnamese army?
After I left the Vietnamese army, I went to the jungle and I took the opportunity there to learn photography. It was in the jungle.
How long did you train to become a photographer? How long was your training in the jungle?
I learned in the jungle for about 1 month. At that time, we did not have any adequate equipment yet.
At one point in time, did you also go to China to develop your photography and or filming skills?
Yes, I pursued my study in China for a while.
And when were you in China to study photography?
It was in 1977 that I went to study in China.
So you went to China to study photography while you were at K1, or was it before you were at K1?
At that time, I was still in office K1.
Did Pol Pot ask you to make photos of him or photos of foreign delegations, for instance Chinese delegations that were visiting Democratic Kampuchea?
Most of the time, I took photos when Chinese delegates or visitors came to meet Pol Pot. I personally took the photographs of them.
Maybe I'm not 100% sure, Mr. Witness, but maybe I have a photo of you taken during a visit of a high-ranking Chinese leader. Mr. President, with your leave, I would like to show a photo to the witness. I will also, with your leave, like to put it on the screen. It is photo E3/3258. There's only one year N, which is P from photo 00416558.
President, the chamber grants your request, and AV unit officers, please show the photos on the screen.
As I said, I'm not sure, Mr. Witness, but in the middle, one can see someone with a photo camera in his hand. Is that you?
No, it was not me.
Do you know who that was?
I do not know this person.
Let me turn to the two main persons depicted on this photograph. Who is the person on the right?
It's Pol Pot.
And do you know who the person on the left is, the person that he is shaking hands with?
To the left is Tamok.
Just to be clear for the record, to what is Tamok? I heard a strange English translation. To the left is Tamok. Is the person who shakes hands with Pol Pot Tamok? Is this what you're saying?
President, AV unit officer, please show the photos on the screen again. The face of the person looks similar to Tamok's.
Before I turn to this person, is this maybe a photo that you took?
No, it's not a photo that I took.
Let me help you a little bit with who we believe the person on the left could be. He looks very similar, and that's also written in the case file, to a very high-ranking Chinese standing committee member called Geng Biao. Does that somehow refresh your memory? Geng Biao?
I do not know that person. I cannot say for sure who the person is.
That's no problem, Mr. Witness. Mr. President, I would like to show a few more photos to find out whether the witness might be the one who actually took that photo. I would like to show now, with your leave, photo E3/3250, ERN P 004-16551.
Yes, you may proceed. And AV unit, please show the photo on screen.
Mr. Witness, is this maybe a photo that you took?
No, it's not the photo that I took.
Do you recognize the people who are portrayed on this photo?
I recognize Pol Pot, Nuon Chea, Ieng Sary. As for the others, I do not recognize them.
If you have a look at the person between Nuon Chea and Ieng Sary, could that be Sao Pim?
It is possible that the person is a Sao Pim.
And the person left of Ieng Sary, could that be Vorn Vet? And the next person, Koi Toon? And then the small person on the left, Pung from the rubber plantation in the East Zone, the number 2 of the East Zone.
One after the other for the record. Otherwise we don't get an answer. You asked him 3.
Yes, correct. One by one. Mr. Witness, left next to Ieng Sary, is that Vorn Vet?
Yeah.
I don't really recognize these 3 people.
I think I have a much clearer photo of Sao Pim, which I would, with your leave, would like to show now to the witness, Mr. President. That is E3/3259, ERN P 004-16559.
Yes, you may do so. And again, AV unit, please show the photo on the screen. And leave it on screen while the question is being asked.
Mr. Witness, this is the same person who we see on the back, who we identified as Geng Biao. The person in the middle, is that Sao Pim?
I am not sure.
Do you know who the person left of presumably So Pim is?
I think now you need to be clear, a background or first row, for the record.
For the record, it's the person with the krama on who is smiling and talking to Geng Biao. Or not talking, but interacting with Geng Biao. Let me ask it more general, Mr. Witness. Do you recognize anyone on this photo?
I do not recognize people in this photo. As for Osapam, I am not even sure that I recognize him in this photo.
Then there's, I think, two more photos that I would like to show you, and my question will only be if you were maybe the one that took that photo. Mr. President, with your leave, I would like to show to the witness E3/3.
Please hold on. And International Deputy Co-Prosecutor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just ask counsel to put on the record the basis for his belief that the person in the photo is Geng Biao. So all we have right now is counsel testifying. If he has a basis, we'd just like that to be part of the record.
Yes, it's actually on the record on the case file. E3/3479, English ERN 00442826. There's a description of the person that is exactly the person that I just showed, shaking hands with Pol Pot, and it says, Pol Pot greets PRC Minister of Defense Geng Biao at Pochentong Airport. Ing Sari and KR photographers look on. So that's the first source of our information. And the second one is public, but that I can repeat here. He looks very similar to photos on Google. So we believe it's Geng Biao, who visited DK between 75 and 79. So, Mr. President, with your leave, I would like to show one or two more photos to the witness.
Judge Laverne, you have the floor.
Oui, juste pour...
Yes, just for purposes of clarification, Counsel Coupe, can you tell us whether you know the author of the titles accompanying the photograph that you have just shown? It is important for us to know, is it someone who has sources himself or herself? And what is the provenance of those sources?
It doesn't say. Who the one is that wrote these things down. There are other photos identifying other Chinese visitors, but I, at this point in time, I cannot say who the author is of this particular description of who it is that can be seen on the photo. As I said, Mr. President, I would like to show E3/3269.
Please hold on, Counsel, and Judge Laverne, you have the floor.
Juste une clarification.
Just for the purposes of clarification and for the record, this is not a photograph published in a newspaper. The annotation does not appear in a newspaper?
Maybe something went wrong in the translation. I didn't say it was from a newspaper. The only thing that I have is this document that says description, and then what I just said, Pol Pot greets PRC Minister of Defense, Geng Biao, at Pochintong Airport. That's all I have. I don't know who wrote that. So I didn't say it's coming from a newspaper. So, again, with your leave, Mr. President, E3/3269, ERN P00416570. It's a photo taken at Angkor Wat.
Yes, you can do that. And every unit, again, please show that document on screen.
Mr. Witness, is this photo taken by you?
I am not sure about all these photos. Maybe my memory does not serve me well now. But it seems that I did not take this photo, although I am not 100% sure. Most of the time I only took photos in Phnom Penh. That is during the negotiations or meetings of the delegates. As for photos taken outside, I am not sure whether it was me or another photographer who took the photos.
Well, Mr. Witness, I actually have a photo of a meeting of a high-ranking Chinese delegation. And with your leave, Mr. President, I would like to show that photo to the witness, and maybe this photo is a photo he took. That is E3/3260, ERN P00416560.
Yes, the chamber allows that. Every unit, again, please show the photo on screen. President, every unit, please show the photo on screen if you have one, and if you don't, please inform the chamber. It is now on screen.
Mr. Witness, is this maybe a photo that you took?
No, it's not the photo that I took.
Let me finish by showing you a very iconic photo, and I will ask you if you took him or if you knew or know who it was that took this photo. Mr. President, it's not a very good copy, but nevertheless, it's photo E3/3236, year NP 00407223.
Yes, the chamber allows that. Every unit, please show that photo again on the screen.
Did you take this photo, or do you know who took this photo?
I did not take this photo. Maybe, in fact, there were some other photographers who were more skillful than me, and it seems that this photo was taken even before I engaged in the photography.
Well, following up on what you said, Mr. Witness, I would like to show you a photo of someone who claims to be the photographer of many photos of Pol Pot and others, for instance, at visits, during visits of dams. Mr. President, I would like to show the witness a photo of someone who testified here, Nem M. And I would like to ask the witness whether he recognizes this person. It's document, I believe actually it has an E3, but I shall refer now to the ERN only. It's 001-62874, and here I have it as document D108/3/15.1.
Yes, the chamber allows that.
Mr. Witness, have you ever seen this person between 75 and 79?
I'm not completely sure, but I seem to remember the guy is protected, so don't mention the name, but find another way to identify him if he can. Or am I wrong?
Yes, you're wrong. This is Nem M.
I know it is, yes. But
No, he's not protected.
oh, sorry.
Do you recognize him, or you have no idea who he is?
No, I do not recognize him.
Did you ever see him in the proximity of Chinese delegations or in the proximity of Pol Pot. No, because if you don't know him, you cannot answer this question. Let me just nevertheless read something from his testimony, just to be 100% sure. Mr. President, I'll be reading from E1/419. This is the transcript of 20 April 2016, NEM-M testifying, answering questions from the prosecution, I believe, at 10:02 in the morning. When I worked in Tuol Sleng, I was also involved in taking photographs, for instance at Angkor Wat, of Uncle Pol Pot, or Chinese delegations or other delegations from the communist bloc. Usually I would be assigned to take photographs of Pol Pot and Son Sen, but I rarely saw Khieu Samphan at the time. End of quote. Mr. Witness, was there someone who was specifically occupied with taking photos of Pol Pot?
Which persons among all these people in the photos?
You just confirmed that you don't recognize this person, but do you know whether there was any other persons specifically tasked with making photos of Pol Pot, for instance, while he was visiting dams? Was there someone who was specifically assigned to do this, or you have no idea?
There was a separate unit for that, but I was not in that unit. So, as I said, there was a separate unit responsible for taking such photos.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Witness. Another question, were you involved in the making of a film of Vietnamese prisoners?
Yes, I was.
What do you recall about that?
It was a short documentary film of one Vietnamese, but I cannot recall the location. I was tasked to make that short film. And the camera that I used was provided by China. So, and the film was made of this one Vietnamese prisoner of war.
Do you recall where it was that you shot this short film? Where was it? Was it in Phnom Penh? And if yes, where in Phnom Penh?
It was filmed in Phnom Penh, but I cannot recall its exact location, although I knew that it was in Phnom Penh.
Let me see if I can assist you a little bit by reading some testimony from someone who testified in this court. Mr. President, I'll be referring to the transcript of 16 June 2016. At just before 11:07 in the morning, the witness testified that, talking about this film, said the film shot by Teng, nephew of Pol Pot, was in two parts. One was shot near the pond and the bushes to the north, sorry, it was to the east, of Street 163, and to the north of Mao Zedong Boulevard. And the second part was shot at my house, that is on Street 95. Mr. Witness, Street 163, Mao Zedong Boulevard, is that where you shot this film?
I do not know whether you are referring to a film or a documentary film. Since I do not see this film, I cannot respond to your question.
I understand. Do you recall with whom you had contact about this film? Which cadre assisted you on the location where the film was shot? Do you remember?
Pong was the one who assigned me to go there.
And do you remember the name of the person that you had contact with once you had arrived at the scene, at the location?
When I arrived there, everything had been arranged for me to make that a short film by Pong. It was a very short film, and after I did it, then I returned.
Do you know whether the film that you shot was ever shown at a conference in Jakarta at some point in time?
I do not know about that, because after I finished filming, I handed the camera over to the Chinese, and I did not know what happened to it after that.
Let's talk a bit about Pang. In your WRI you speak quite a bit about Pang. What is it that you remember about Pang? What can you tell us that you remember now?
I did not grasp the full extent of his work regarding the person by the name Pang. He was the one who was in charge of giving assignments. Pang and Pol Pot interacted with each other, and he was the one who gave assignments.
Was he the chairman of Office K1?
ថាគាត់ជាប្រធានកមួយ
Yes, we can say that he was the chairman of K1 office because he was the one in charge of giving assignments and also supervising the guards personnels. Everything went from Pol Pot down to Pong. Pong received the orders and then he relayed the orders to the personnels.
Did you ever see Pang having contact with Tuch or Tuik Koitun, the person that you mentioned, the former chief of the North Zone? Did you ever see Pang have contact with Tuch or Tuik? I did not see them contacting each other. This morning, Mr. Witness, you were shown a list by the prosecution with names of people that worked at K1 and K3. You identified yourself as number 5 on that list, Teng alias Pool. Did you ever see such a list of names of people working for K1 and K3 while you were working at K1? Did you ever come across such a list of personnel, of people who were working like yourself at K1 or K3? No, I never saw such a list. Do you recognize the handwriting of that list? I believe you still have it in front of you. I do not yet understand about this list. Are you asking me whether I recognize the names of people in this list? Not so much the names, but the handwriting. Is that something? Is there something from this document that you somehow identified as having its origins from K1? For instance, do you recognize the handwriting? No, I do not know who were the author of the handwriting. Let me ask another question, Mr. Witness. When you were addressing Pol Pot, or when you were addressing Nuon Chea in personal contact, how would you call your uncle, your Pol Pot? How would you, which terms would you use? Do you remember? Pol Pot, I mean Pol Pot. Would you let me make it very concrete? Would you tell to him or call him, for instance, Om Pol or Om Pol Pot or Bong Pol, or how would you address him? In general, I address him as
Bong Pol or brother Pol.
And how would you generally address Nuon Chia?
ចំពោះនួនជាវិញជាទូទៅលោកហៅនួនជាថាដូចvậyដែរបងនោះជាទូទៅហៅ
In generally, I address him as brother or Bong. President, can you give an example of how you address him?
ពល
Witness. Bong Pol, Bong Nuon Chia, Bong Khieu Sampon.
How would you address Son Sen?
សុនសេនលោកហៅសុនសេនថ្មី កម្មាភិបាល
When we address most of the cadres, we address them by brother, Bong.
Would your colleagues address Pol Pot or Nuon Chia as Bong Pol or Bong Noon, or would they rather say Om Pol or Om Noon?
ពលឬក៏បងនួនឬក៏គេហៅថាអ៊ំពលអ៊ំនួនទៅវិញទេ
Yeah.
It depended on individual's preference. But in general, people address them as brothers. But sometimes people address them as Om or Ta.
And was there a difference in communicating directly in person with the way Nuon Chia or Pol Pot were addressed in telegrams or letters? Is that something that you know?
សារទូលេខខ្ញុំអត់ដឹង
I did not know about how they were communicated or addressed on telegrams.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Mr. President, for the record, the document was used by the prosecution to ask the witness certain questions. I've done the same thing. I have no problem with this. I didn't object, but we believe that the document was made up by S21, either by Duik or by PON, not only because of its content and references to Pol Pot and Nuon Chia as Uncle 1 and 2, but more specifically because of Duik's testimony during one of the confrontations in case 1. I'll be referring now to document E3/82, English ERN 00398-187, French 00398-193, and Khmer 00398-179. The investigating judges asks Duik the following question. We are showing you a document entitled Lists of the People who are working at Office K1 and Office K3. Have you seen this document previously? Do you know who wrote up this document and under what circumstances? Then Duik says, I have never seen this document before. I can say that the handwriting looks like Pon's, but I'm not sure if it is really his handwriting. I don't know whether these lists were drawn up at S21 or not. And then he says, I note that there is mention made of Uncle number 2, whereas at S21 we never called Nuon Chia by that name. We called him Brother number 2. But if you look at the content of the document, there are multiple references to Pang, which seems to suggest that this document was made up shortly after the arrest of Pang, which we believe was in May or June 1978. Maybe it's now a good time to break. No, I haven't finished yet. Sorry, maybe this is a good moment to take the break. That's what I was asking, and I saw you nod. But if you want me to continue, I'm happy to continue. Mr. Witness, do you recall ever having spoken to a journalist of the Cambodia Daily, a journalist called Tet Sambat?
No, I cannot recall that. But there have been many journalists who came to interview me.
Do you remember ever speaking to a journalist about Pol Pot's character? Questions where you were asked to describe Pol Pot's character?
Yes, I can recall that.
Let me ask you a similar question. If you were to describe your uncle's character, Pol Pot's character, you knew him very well, you worked with him, you know him personally. How would you describe Pol Pot's character?
Based on my observation of him and my experiences of living with him, he was not a brutal person. He was a polite, gentle person, and he was friendly with other people and friends. He was not an arrogant person, and he never used any inappropriate words that were abusive toward other people. And when he told other people, he gave good advice. I did not see him at all as a brutal person.
Were you with Pol Pot till his death in 1998?
Yes, I remained with him until his death.
If I should continue, then I will, Mr. President. Mr. Witness, you were very close to Pol Pot. Have you ever heard of any attempts, whenever, in the early 70s or later, any attempts of food poisoning Pol Pot?
I'm not quite certain about this incident. During the time when I lived with him, I only heard about this incident after I left Phnom Penh. I heard about the case in which there were individuals with intention to poison him.
Do you know who they were?
I did not know clearly. I only heard that it was people who were close to him, who were the one who gave him daily medicines.
Were you also close to him at the very end of 1978 when two foreign journalists visited him and talked to him, and one academic who accompanied these two journalists was murdered in his hotel room in December 1978?
No, I was not aware of that.
Mr. President, and now I actually need to break because I have one thing left, and that is showing some footage to the witness of a visit, and we need the break for that.
President, thank you. It is now convenient time for the break. The chamber will take a break from now until 3:05. Court officer, please assist the witness at the waiting room reserved for the witness during the break time, and invite him back together with the duty counsel into the courtroom at 3:05. The court is now in recess.